Hello there. Welcome to another midweek meditation. I am Reverend Devin, and this is a weekly meditation that I do for my churches in Hyde Park, Bakersfield, and Jeffersonville, Vermont. This is also a meditation that I do for anybody who's joining in over YouTube and is looking to nurture a progressive faith. If you're looking for a second opinion on how we can build up a loving faith within our lives, I hope that you like and subscribe, and please feel free to share these videos with anybody you feel called to. I wanted to make sure that I had one of my Darth Vader t-shirts on for this one, because today we're going to talk about the dark side. Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another weekly meditation. This Sunday is going to be the first Sunday after Christmas, which means that we within the Christian tradition have entered into the season of Christmas, where we honor the gift that is Jesus Christ. And I think that in order for us to honor a gift, it's good for us to recognize how that gift is useful. Last week I talked about how Jesus was a light, a gift of light to the world. And I think that in order for that light to be useful, we need to recognize that there is also darkness within the world as well. And so this week we're going to be reading a passage from Matthew 2, verses 13 through 23. And this is a story that directly follows up the passage, the story about the wise men. And so this week we're going to be reading a passage from Matthew 2, verses 13 through 23. And it's a pretty heavy one. It's a passage, the story that follows directly up after the wise men evade Herod. And Herod, learning that he no longer has the location of Jesus Christ, this person who could be a threat to his throne, sends his troops out into Bethlehem and kills every single infant child that was just born. It's not exactly material that I would normally want to share the week following Christmas, but it's in the lectionary, and I also think that this is the most challenging passage to share with the congregation, and so I'm going to do it. I think that this is a story about darkness within the world, and how if we are going to make use of the gift of Jesus Christ, we need to recognize that darkness that exists in the world as well. And so let's go over the reading. Our reading is from Matthew 2, 13 through 23. Now after they had left the wise men, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time he had learned from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled. He will be called the Nazarene. And so when talking about this passage from Matthew 2, I think it's important that we first state and recognize that there is nothing about this that is good. Infanticide stinks. And Herod was a crazy person. And whether or not this is something that actually historically happened or not doesn't really change the fact that Herod was a crazy person. And I think that this is something that the historical Herod would have done if he found himself in a situation where he was threatened. And so the reason I feel that the author of Matthew chose to add this story about Herod retaliating against the people of Israel and basically forcing Joseph and Mary into exile into Egypt, it's because the author wanted us to understand that just because a light was given to the world didn't change the fact that darkness, evil, still existed within the world. I think that when good things happen, especially when we talk about the blessing that is Jesus Christ, we, especially within the Christian tradition, have a bad habit of sort of gravitating and holding on and latching on to Jesus Christ and being like, well, Jesus is here, everything is fixed now. But that is not the case. Jesus is not the end of the story, and Jesus' birth was not the end of the story. The reason that the gift of Jesus Christ was so important to us who follow Jesus Christ is because there are some serious problems with the world, and we needed the example of Jesus Christ in order to help us fix those problems. And so when we're talking about King Herod, and when we're talking about how he felt justified even in sending his troops out into Israel and killing every single newborn baby they could find, we need to recognize that Herod himself isn't so much the problem as he is a symptom of a world that is messed up. I think that in a lot of ways it is easier for us to understand the darkness that exists within this world than it is for us to understand the love of Jesus Christ. Herod was in a position where any threat to his authority, any threat to his throne, needed to be met with severely and swiftly. When he heard that there was a Messiah who was born, when he realized that there was a threat to his throne, his authority, he knew that if he didn't take care of that as quickly as possible, if he allowed a Messiah to grow into a full-grown person, then he could find himself in a situation where he himself would be killed. And so, out of concern for his own survival, he went to kill this child. I think that from Herod's standpoint, he was the good guy. He was trying to save his own hide. And I think that he would argue that if the wise men had just told him where Jesus was, he would have saved his hide with less collateral damage. This doesn't change the fact that it is a horrible thing that Herod was planning to do. But I think that we need to recognize that the reason Herod wanted to do these horrible things is because the way he saw the world was flawed. He didn't see the world as a loving place. He didn't realize that the type of Messiah that Jesus was not the type that would threaten him or anybody. Jesus was the type of person who didn't respond to violence with violence. Jesus was a Prince of Peace. And I think the irony is that if anybody could forgive Herod for what he did after he realized that the wise men were not going to tell him where Jesus was, Jesus was that person who would forgive him. And so I think that we need to recognize that Herod existed in an ecosystem that compelled violence, that compelled hatred, that compelled fear. This is the type of world that Jesus came to help us cure. This is the type of darkness that Jesus wants to shed a light upon so that we can do something about it. We need to recognize that this darkness is a part of the human experience. And if we are going to heal it, we need to be willing to confront it as we are able. Here within the world today, I think that the most obvious comparison to Herod would be Vladimir Putin, who is waging an unjust war in Ukraine. And as the Ukrainians slowly take back territory in their country, they are discovering the extent of the war crimes that Putin and Russia have been committing against Ukrainian civilians. This is
a horrible thing that they are doing. We also got to recognize that the reason why Putin is not going to end this war anytime soon is because, like Herod, he is worried about his own hide. If he is unable to project strength the way that Herod felt he needed to project strength, he is probably going to be in a position where his life will be in danger. And so I think that we can understand the fear that motivates that violence. And as Master Yoda said, anger, fear, these are the path of the dark side. We need to recognize that good people are also able to go down the path of the dark side. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I am a huge Darth Vader fan. And the reason I'm such a fan of Darth Vader is because he started off as a good guy. Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi said he was a good man and a good friend. But he was corrupted by fear. And because of that fear, he became the creepy, imposing menace to the galaxy that he was. Each and every one of us have the ability to be seduced by that fear, by that anger, have it turn into hatred. When we allow that to affect the ways in which we treat our neighbors, much like the way in which a lot of these governors from the South are shipping up migrants to northern cities as a form of protest or something, totally ignoring the lives that they are affecting, the fact that they are using human lives as political pawns. That is a product of this imperfect world that Herod believed that he was in, that many of us believe that we are in. And I think that if we are going to allow that world to sway us, if we're not willing to try to approach this world the way in which Jesus Christ did, then we're going to see more violence repeating itself. Jesus came as a gift to us, a gift of light and a gift of love. He showed us that if we choose the path of love within this world over the path of anger, the path of fear, the path of hate, then we are able to make positive changes in this world. And so let us also recognize that these are happening within our own communities. Fear of our transgender brothers and sisters are leading people to try to impose discriminatory rules, regulations, and practices within our communities. We are seeing brothers and sisters getting harmed on the street because of rhetoric against people who are transgender, people who are Asian, people who are black or Jewish. And that is exactly the type of darkness that Matthew is trying to make us aware of in Matthew chapter 2. And so let us recognize that the path of Christ stands in opposition to that type of fear, anger, and hatred. Let us recognize that when we're talking about the light of Jesus Christ, we are talking about the light side. We are talking about God's love, not just for us as people, but for others as well, all people. One of my favorite passages from the Bible is from 1 John chapter 3. And the author tells us this: those who do not know love do not know God, for God is love. If we love God, we should also love one another. And so, may the force be with you, and may the light be with you as well.